Welcome, everyone, to Buddhist Center. My name is Jeff Allen, and today, once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. So fortunate that we have the opportunity in this existence where there's so much distraction and there's so many other things to do that we've chosen to and have access to this holy, holy teaching, which is the only thing that will allow us to end suffering all together and achieve a state of fearlessness, freedom from suffering, and achieve even bliss that the Buddha experiences in dependence upon the Mahayana path that we've been presented. And I just, Rizong Rinpoche, the previous Ganden Tri Rinpoche, the previous throne holder of Lama Tsongkhapa's throne, passed away. Anyone who's on Facebook and follows anything Tibetan has seen the loss that everyone's feeling of this incredible, incredible Lama. And I didn't have any personal experience with him, with Ganden Tri Rinpoche, Rizong Rinpoche, but he was always in the picture at all times when I was studying Buddhism, since the mid-90s, and he's from Ladakh. You can read about, if you just look online, you can read, there's so many stories, and Drepung Losaling did a beautiful write-up about him, and Rinpoche had so much respect for him, and you would just see him just as this figure in Tibetan Buddhism. He passed away at 96, who would just always be there as one of those pillars, because any time that you saw anything significant going on, you saw this very high Lama that was so realized and had such a profound impact on so many, many students. And you see the result that a teacher who's authentic and capable can have on the minds of so many different students when they practice the Dharma in such a pure way. So I just want to really start today by saying I'm really so grateful for the teachers that I've had in my life, because none of this would be possible. None of the good things that I can become or have become or might become could happen without the holy, holy instructions that these incredibly kind teachers have given to me and given to many, many, many people. Not that these teachers only gave the teachings to me, but I can only speak from my experience that His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Khenser Geshe Wandak, Geshe Lobsang Gompo, if we look at the emphasis in my life, and then now, because of the kindness of Khenser Geshe Wandak, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Geshe Lobsang Gompo, now I have access to Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin La, who's in the first graduating class of Geshe Mas, and was, one of, the early stages of her learning. Rinpoche was her philosophy teacher, and now as a result of that, with Rinpoche passing, when I got in touch with her, just to, reconnect, I hadn't spoken with her probably in 20 years. She said, you have to go study with this teacher that I study with even. His name is Geshe Dorje Damdu. You have to now, there's a certificate course that's starting up, and you have to go study with him. And I feel so fortunate that Khenser Geshe Wandak was there, intervening almost in, like, if you go back in time in my life, because he had this relationship with Geshe Mila Tenzin Ladrin La. She's one of the greatest scholars in the world when it comes to the Geshe curriculum. And she was so kind to tell me about Geshe Dorje Damdu, and I signed up for the course, and now we all know I'm in the master's course. And there's a diploma course that's opening up. It's going to start in March. It's a 14-month course. It's nowhere near as rigorous, and I think everybody should sign up for it. It's in rupees price-wise, and it's, kind of a condensed understanding of the entire kind of Buddhist path, but in a different way than we would normally approach it. Same way, but different way. That's all I can say. And anybody who's heard Geshe Dorje Damdu teach, you know exactly what I mean. So there's this opportunity that we have because Geshe Wandok was so kind to teach Geshe Mela Tenzin Ladrin and some of the other Jamyang Choling nuns. And now as a result of that, Rinpoche passes and I'm immediately connected with this teacher, Geshe Dorje Damtu. I'm now committed to study 6 years with in a master's course. Such a holy, holy being. And please, everybody, pray for his long life and success in all of the activities that he's doing, because he's just like a bodhisattva machine, spreading the Dharma all over the world and spreading it in such a clear way that's so just applicable to us and so digestible that I just encourage you all, while we have these holy beings in our world, to study with a being like Geshe Dorje Damdu. So then another teacher now that I have access to, the holy, holy teacher, Umzila Geshe Aga, who has so much effort. Geshe Lobsang Gompo's really root student, and also Rinpoche's student a little, but more Rinpoche's relative, and Geshe Lobsang Gompo's root student, and Geshe Lobsang Gompo's root teacher was Khenser Geshe Wandak. So we see now, because of Khenser Geshe Wandak's kindness, and Geshe Lobsang Gompo's kindness, now I can study with Umzila Geshe Aga, who's considered a great scholar and who will pick up my phone call anytime, arranged incredible prayers for Lori, has arranged prayers for some of you as well. And I rejoice in the kindness of Khenser Geshe Wandak. And I see the impact that having the relationship with a qualified teacher can have in your life. And Rinpoche always told me that everything will be all right. Just have faith in the Dharma, study the Dharma, practice the Dharma, make that your main focus. Don't focus on some of the other things that others would think you should. Even though you may think that it's a good idea, just trust me. And I feel that it was so kind for him to do that, because even in his passing, I'm under the care, and we're all under the care of these holy, holy beings that are so rare. If we look at the world, if we look at this universe, and we look at the opportunity that these billions of human beings have to meet with a qualified Lama, and to have the most qualified Lama that I've known, they don't get more qualified than the Nirmanakaya, an emanation of a Buddha, and that's who Rinpoche was in my eyes. But to have access to that, and then have access, because of that kind Lama, to all of these other very, very qualified teachers in a world where billions of people will not even hear the word Buddhism, won't even hear the fact that the origin of suffering can cease, and that your sufferings and all of these horrible pains, mental and physical, that you have can come to an end. And so many sentient beings won't hear that. And it's because Khenser Rinpoche was so kind to come to the West, like I read a couple weeks or last week, like Atisha, bearing this pure lineage, of Khenser Pema Jetsun and Ling Rinpoche and Trijung Rinpoche and Zong Rinpoche and Uzer Lama and all of these Gen Uzer and Gen Lapchap, all these incredible beings. Rinpoche was so kind to bring us this lineage and put it in our hands, like we were these children who didn't know anything, and now we have access to know even more than we did yesterday, because these teachers are so kind and continue to teach us. And it's because of this root teacher, Khenser Geshe Wandak, who's inseparable from Waitara, that we were able to come in contact with for such a long period of time. People meet with teachers, and then they see them 5 or 6 times, and they build a relationship based on that faith. We saw Rinpoche hundreds and hundreds of times. I translated thousands of teachings that many times, and I feel like, how blessed are we? We've really been able to make use of this human basis by meeting with a Lama and satisfying that first situation. But just meeting with a Lama isn't going to cut the root of cyclic existence. Meeting with a Lama and then recognizing the Lama is like a doctor who prescribes the medicine of the Dharma, and it's our responsibility to take it by putting it into practice. And if we don't put it into practice, nothing really can happen. We may be able to meet later with a Lama if we have this faith, but if we don't put into practice what the Lama teaches, it really doesn't have the kind of impact and significance that it could have if you put what the Lama teaches into practice. And I feel so fortunate to have just a little bit done that, and to be able to take 3 classes a week, 2 to 3 classes a week with Geshe Dorje Damdu, and speak regularly with Geshe Aga, and have this incredible community of Dharma practitioners who are very, very skilled in understanding, and a group that are studying in this program that have already gone through the first master's program, that are really, really interested in investigating these kind of deeper topics through debate and through dialogue. So really feel so happy. I rejoice in what Lobsang Dunyu is doing at Sarah J with the debate course, and I just wanted to start by saying homage to all of these compassionate teachers, homage to all of the students who are studying hard to become compassionate teachers, and that everyone has Buddha nature, and we will all become a Buddha. And right now is the time to start working on, we have this proliferating bodhicitta, Buddha nature, that allows this mind to go from the impure state into a pure state, because of the fact that its natural Buddha nature is empty of inherent existence. So it doesn't have a nature of this, of that, of sullied, because it's naturally pure, naturally empty of inherent existence. And from that state, it can be pure in terms of the sullied or not sullied. And right now it's sullied, so we can mature this sullied state into a state that's not sullied, because it doesn't have the nature of sullied. So we have this great opportunity to engage in this pathway of practice. So I just want to say, everybody smile. It's Sunday. We're listening to a Dharma teaching. Many people aren't. Many people don't have the attention span to spend a couple of minutes. You've all committed to a couple of hours of change your mind day. And that's a very rare thing. And we are doing it from a very qualified perspective. And I think that you all know that one of the main things that I try to do is make sure that there is no change in the meaning of which that was presented so clearly and so purely from Kensar Geshe Wandak to me, and then now to you. So thank you, and let's get started. Thank you, and see you all later. No, no. Let me just let's get into a posture that's suitable for setting a proper motivation. Posture has a lot to do with our clarity of mind. We've gone over it a million times, so let's not get into too many details. Anybody who's on some of the other applications that this may be new for, don't worry. It's not a race to to know more than one other person does. You can find all of this information very, very available on my different pages. Any of the YouTube teachings all start out, and most of them have an explanation of what I'm about to say. 7-point Vairocana posture. Everybody get into it. Very important to keep your back straight. It says vertebrae like a stack of coins. So let's get into that 7-point Vairocana posture to the best of our ability. Following, you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Anybody who's watching along who doesn't know what it is. Back very straight, important. So we're going to start breathing in and out through our nose. So 7-point Vairocana posture has our tongue on the top of the roof of the mouth, with our mouth in a comfortable position. So we're going to be breathing in and out of our nose, not our mouth. So we're going to breathe in and out. So breathing in, breathing the air all the way to the top of the breath, the breath all the way to the top, filling the lungs and the diaphragm, and then exhaling through our nose and counting 1. And then repeating that process, but bringing the count up as we repeat the process, obviously. So our focal object will be focusing on, and we've done this many times before, so I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. Our focal object is the breathing in and out and the counting, and we're going to keep our mind from getting distracted, from scattering, or from losing the object of observation because we become sleepy or dull. So we're going to make sure the introspection, the spy in our mind, is saying, oh, hey, your mind's distracted. It's kind of going scattered places. Or, oh, hey, your mind is in a place that's kind of sleepy. Your mindfulness is supposed to be staying on the object of observation of the breathing in and out and the counting. So your mindfulness should then rein back the breathing in and out. Your mind should only be focused on the breathing in and out and the counting. So let's do that, focusing singly on that. Anybody who wants more detailed instruction about this, you can go to previous teachings. Continue focusing on the breathing in and out and the counting. Now, add the image of Buddha Shakyamuni in front of you. Imagine by your mind, about 2 feet away, eye height, size of your thumb or so, beautiful, radiant, and glowing, 3-dimensional, light body. Anyone who's not familiar with Shakyamuni, he's right behind my head. Now breathing in and out and counting, and focusing on the front generation, object of observation of Buddha Shakyamuni. Feel so fortunate to be able to focus on such a holy being who's abandoned all negative qualities and only has excellent qualities, has perfect wisdom, perfect caring for others, perfect power, perfect skillful means, has abandoned the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. We will become this holy being who has abandoned the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. Our mental consciousness has currently the same nature as the Buddha's mental consciousness, empty of inherent existence. Currently, our mental consciousness is defiled with the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. But just like Buddha Shakyamuni was able to do, we can mature our minds to the state of purity, to the state of perfect wisdom, compassion, love, power, and skillful means. By relying on this totally reliable guide who teaches us how to abandon the origin of suffering, we can become Buddhas ourselves. By relying on a union of method and wisdom, a wisdom realizing emptiness united with the bodhicitta, this immense love, immeasurable love, and great compassion for all sentient beings united with wisdom, will allow us to become that perfectly pure being just like Buddha Shakyamuni. So now let's pay homage and respect to Buddha Shakyamuni for turning the wheel of Dharma 3 times, teaching us the hearer's solitary realizer vehicle, teaching us the great vehicle, the perfection vehicle, and the tantric vehicle. Now let's pay homage to Buddha Shakyamuni. This is called praise to Buddha Shakyamuni. This is a prayer you always hear in Tibetan at the Dalai Lama's teachings. And usually you would recite the first body of the text 3 times, but we're just going to read it through once for auspicious reasons. Think about the fact that you have this Buddha nature. Think about the fact that your mind will mature to the state of Buddhahood. Look at the qualities that are presented here about Buddha Shakyamuni. Think about how many of those qualities you currently have, qualities like those qualities that you have, and rejoice in that. And then also think about the fact that you will mature your mental consciousness to the state where it is pure and has those qualities, and make aspirational prayers that you will be able to have those qualities that Buddha Shakyamuni currently has, because Buddha Shakyamuni matured his consciousness to the state of perfection, just like you can mature your consciousness to the state of perfection. So I'll read you this. Praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the default destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate and make offerings and go for refuge. I'm going to say it 3 times. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise, then I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparable wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior, having great compassion, the founder, having all understanding, the field of merit and qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the Tathagata, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts. To you, the Sangha, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Now bring the image of Buddha Shakyamuni back to the front generation. Rejoice in the fact that we have this opportunity today to hear these holy teachings, and that we can transform our current state into the state of a holy being, one step at a time, one practice, a little bit at a time, and we have exactly what we have to do a little bit at a time, because Buddha Shakyamuni was so kind to come into our world, take those 7 steps, and say, I'm here for all of you. And just feel so grateful that we have such kind beings like Buddha Shakyamuni. So imagine now that Buddha Shakyamuni transforms into the entire merit field. Imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni has just been holding in all of these holy beings. Imagine Kensur Geshe Wandak, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Geshe Lobsang Gompo, Geshe Dorje Damdu, Geshe Aga, Umzala Geshe Aga, Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin, all these holy beings who've had such an effect on our lives. Dema Locha Rinpoche, all of these holy beings that have had such effect on our life. Imagine them in the space in front of us with Buddha Shakyamuni there, imagining the holy beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya, to Asanga and Basu Bandhu, and Dignaga and Dharmakirti, and Vimuktasena, and Haribhadra, and Gunaprabha, and Shakyaprabha, and the holy beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri, to Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Arya Deva and Chandrakirti and Shanti Deva and Chandarashita and Baba Vega and all the holy beings. You see Lord Atisha there, and Lama Sirlimpa, who passed the holy teachings of Bodhicitta down to Lama Atisha, and Lama Atisha's root student, and who he passed the Lam Rim teachings down to lay great practitioner Drontompa and the 3 Kadampa lineages, and all those holy beings of Gampopa and Sharawa, all these holy beings that we see who have received these lineages of teachings, and the Nyingma Kaji Raju, Sakya, and Galupa, holy, holy lamas, and all these great yogis. Imagine them all in the space in front of you, the holy beings of the lineage of blessings, Tilopa, Naropa, Milarepa, Marpa, Milarepa, Gampo, all these incredibly holy, holy beings. Imagine them all in the space in front of you, all the holy deities of the highest Yoga Tantra, Yogi Tantra, Performance Tantra, Action Tantra, the 35 Buddhas, all of the perfected protector deities. Imagine them all in the space in front of you. Imagine them all so happy that you're here today, engaging in a virtuous practice, making use of this human basis of leisure that we have, these 8 leisures that we currently possess, we're actually making use of. We're actually taking the medicine of the Dharma that our teachers have given us so generously that so many times before we just left on the table. Today we're taking the medicine of the Dharma that the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas want us so badly to take, because all they care about us is achieving happiness, a complete bliss, and a fearlessness, which is a complete freedom from suffering. And they see us actually taking the medicine. They see us actually engaging in what it will take in order to achieve the states, and that's all they care about for us. They only want that day and night for each and every one of us, each and every infinite being that is not transformed into the state of a Buddha. Every single being wants each and every one of those beings to be transformed into the state of a Buddha. And you can see now that all of the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas are so happy that you're doing something about the situation that they feel is so eminent for you. And now imagine that you have infinite hands and you grab all of the sentient beings, grab all the hell, hungry ghosts, and animals that you can imagine. Every single sentient being, don't leave out any. Imagine that you grab all the hands of all human beings. Get rid of those childish labels where we're attached to certain people and we don't like certain people, and we call this one an enemy and this one superior to another, and you're just a stranger. Look at all of these beings that you've brought here as beings you equally want to help, because you see them all as equally as important to you, and you know that cherishing others more than yourself is the key for you to become a Buddha, for you to achieve fearlessness and complete bliss and infinite happiness. You have to learn how to cherish others more than yourself. And now you see these beings as so important, and you love them so much that you've brought them all here. All the demigods, all the gods, you leave out no beings. Hell, hungry ghost, animal, humans, demigods, and gods, you bring them all here. To the place to hear this teaching on Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment that is passed down because of Atisha's kindness through these lineages of blessings, profound view, and extensive deeds that then trickle down into our little childlike hands and into our minds to be able to achieve the wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation. So now all sentient beings are around you. You've led them all here. You're ready to lead them in prayer. You're ready to, begin to think about the explicit and implicit meaning of the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, the explicit meaning of the emptiness of objective existence, the lack of objective existence of all phenomena, the lack of inherent or intrinsic existence of all phenomena, and implicitly the teaching on the 5 paths that will lead to Buddhahood, the 5 bodhisattva paths, if you will, and talking about the 5 Mahayana paths, that path of accumulation where you become a bodhisattva and generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment. If we're speaking at it from a dual capacity, from the conventional dual capacity bodhisattva sense, we generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And we stay on the path of accumulation for 3 great levels, and then we take that bodhisattva vow. And once we take that bodhisattva vow, after we're on the smallest stage of the path of accumulation, after becoming a bodhisattva, after having aspiring bodhicitta and saying, I will become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, and becoming a being who's called a bodhisattva, who day and night only wishes to do things that will make him or her become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, and then he or she takes the bodhisattva vow, takes the 18 root and 46 secondary vows, and becomes an engaged bodhisattva and practices 6 perfections, and goes through those stages of the path of accumulation, and then has a union of calm abiding and special insight, because their understanding becomes more and more refined about emptiness, and the object of observation of the special insight is emptiness, the lack of objective existence of all of reality, of all of phenomena, and they've engaged in enough shamatha meditation where they can single-pointedly stay on an object of observation for up to 4 hours that's been brought about by this kind of special physical and mental pliancy that occurs occurs from going through the 9 stages of shamatha, and one achieves this kind of state of equanimity from which one jumps to this ability to be in this calm, abiding mind. And at the path of preparation, after one is a bodhisattva, then he or she takes this very calm mind and unites it very thoroughly with the object of observation, emptiness, that one is used in their analytical meditation, and then makes it more and more refined as he or she goes through the stages of the path of preparation of heat, peak, patience, and the final mundane state, if you will, as their meditation, their calm abiding, united with special insight, becomes more and more refined. The inferential valid cognition becomes more and more refined as far as the subtlety in terms of the subject and object observation that's going on. And it gets to the point in that last state where even though there's still the most subtle conceptuality going on, the subject, the meditator, the wisdom mind meditating doesn't even see the conceptuality anymore, and then he or she then can see emptiness and move to the path of seeing, where there's a direct valid cognition of emptiness on an uninterrupted path, and then a path of release. And that's what the Heart Sutra is implicitly teaching. And then at that point, he or she is a first ground bodhisattva, and then has to go through 10 bodhisattva grounds to get rid of the more subtle, more of the coarse afflictions go away. The coarse afflictions when you have a direct perception of emptiness. That's the only thing that will start to cut roots of afflictions. The practices of bodhicitta and so forth will not do that. You find in Gonchu Jimmy Wambo's Tenet Systems text in the beginning of it that says you can meditate on love, compassion, and bodhicitta forever, but without the wisdom realizing emptiness, there's no way to cut those roots. There's no way to cut the coarse afflictions and then the subtle afflictions. So the bodhisattva, even though some of the coarse afflictions aren't present after they see emptiness, now they're Arya bodhisattvas, they now have to go through the stages to get rid of the more subtle afflictions, and then eventually the obstructions to omniscience. So this all happens where the coarse afflictions to the most subtle afflictions and the obstructions to omniscience go away from the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and then they're all gone at the path of no more learning. So this is what the Heart Sutra is implicitly teaching, and you see that the afflictions, the afflictive obstructions are gotten rid of up, in the first 7 bodhisattva grounds. But the obstructions to omniscience, which are the imprints of the afflictive obstructions that a Hinayana or foe destroyer and the hearer solitary realizer still has in an abiding nirvana, those are gotten rid of on the last 3 bodhisattva grounds, the 8th, 9th, and 10th bodhisattva grounds, the pure bodhisattva grounds. They're called pure bodhisattva grounds because the bodhisattva at that point in time no longer has the afflictive obstructions. They're really literally at the state that a hearer, a solitary realizer, foe destroyer is in a sense. They no longer have afflictive obstructions, but their great compassion, their love, that bodhisattva path doesn't allow them to sink into nirvana. It just keeps them going, and they get rid of the obstructions to omniscience, and then they become a being like we read about Buddha Shakyamuni, who no longer has afflictive obstructions, no longer has obstructions to omniscience, has perfect wisdom, perfect love, perfect compassion, has no bias, perfect non-biased, perfect power, and perfect skillful means. And if we want to become beings like that, who have complete fearlessness and complete bliss, then we have to go through these stages in the same way. And the Heart Sutra shows us how to do this, because these practices that we have to do allow for the fruition of these things to happen, but the emptiness really has to be combined with the kind of the ripening parts of the path. The ripening parts of the path don't allow us to abandon the afflictions. The wisdom realizing emptiness does. The ripening parts of the path, if it's only renunciation and we don't care about others, we only want to be free ourselves, and it's a personal liberation path, then that mixed with emptiness will give us just that, an abiding nirvana, where we're a hearer, solitary realizer. But if we engage in a path that has the wisdom realizing emptiness, but says, yes, I want to get out for myself, but I want to get out for the sake of everyone. I want everyone to be free. I want everyone to be a Buddha. I want everyone's just as important as me. I want everyone to have infinite happiness and fearlessness. Then you mix that same exact wisdom realizing emptiness, not a new kind, not a different kind, same formula. Now it's mixed with the winds of bodhicitta, and it pushes you away from an abiding nirvana. A bodhisattva would see abiding nirvana as a prison, it says in Nagarjuna's texts. pushes you away from that prison. Why is it like a prison? Because you can't help everyone. The Heart Sutra teaches us all that cool stuff about how then we bodhisoha become Buddhas. So we see in the Heart Sutra this mantra embedded that's sometimes misunderstood, and people think it's a tantric mantra and think there's initiations for the Heart Sutra. And Jayangappi Lodru, the first textbook writer for Losa Ling, just stomps that and shows how this has just been some tradition in the Tibetan tradition especially, that's just a misinterpretation of the perfection of wisdom teaching at the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. And this was not a tantric teaching. It could be interpreted through tantric view, but this teaching wasn't intended for the fact to give you a mantra to recite to be able to generate yourself as a deity. This mantra is merely a summary of all of the 5 paths: the path of accumulation, the first Teata Om Gate, the path of preparation, Gate, path of seeing, Paragate, path of meditation, Parasamgate, path of no more learning, Bodhisoha. So here we see these 5 paths implicitly taught, but the 5 paths, we have to understand, are also empty of objective existence, inherent existence, intrinsic existence. There's no identifiable, permanent, single, independent, substantially existent, inherently existent. There's none of those things. We go through all of the tenets and we'll find there's none of those things. Even the lowest view, Madhyamika says there's not that. And Madhyamika says, and also all phenomena are not inherently existent. The Four Noble Truths are not inherently existent. Emptiness is not inherently existent. Emptiness is empty. So we have to really study for a lot of years to know what that means and not fall into the traps of emptiness is some kind of objective reality. That's a trap. And the other trap is emptiness means nothing. You have to fall in the middle somewhere. That takes a lot of years of practice, and we're not going to sort all that out right now. So imagine that all of these gurus and bodhisattvas are so happy because we're doing it. We're reciting the Heart Sutra. We know what it actually means. It's not just reciting it. We just heard all the meaning of the Heart Sutra condensed. We know what it means. So be so happy that you can do that. Now the gurus and bodhisattvas are so full of bliss, they begin to erupt with nectar and light rays of white, red and blue, method, wisdom, and purification. You see all these light rays and nectar start to brew and come out of the merit field. And imagine that yourself and all sentient beings have a white Om at your crown signifying your body, a red Ah at your throat signifying your speech, and a blue Om at your heart signifying your mind. So just imagine that yourself and all the sentient beings that you brought here, that you love so much and care about so much, all have white Om, red Ah, blue Om at their crown, throat, and heart. Body, speech, and mind. Now imagine the merit field now begins to just shake and have an earthquake of bliss. And now white light rays and nectar shower down like rain and transform into white Oms, dissolve into the Om at our crowns and all sentient beings' crown, and purify our bodies. Imagine that the red light rays and nectars shower down on our like rain because of the bliss that the merit field's experiencing like rain, and transform into red Ahs and dissolve into the red Ah at our throat and all sentient beings' throats, and purify our speech and all sentient beings' speech. Now imagine that blue light rays and nectars out of the bliss of the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas that they're experiencing, because they're so proud of all of us, so happy that we're all together, engaged in virtue. The blue light rays and nectars transform into blue hums that shower down and dissolve into the hum at our heart and all sentient beings' hearts, and transform our minds into the pure minds of the Buddha. So imagine now that ourselves, all sentient beings, all the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas are already pure. Imagine that we all have a pure body, speech, and mind. So we know that we have had Buddha nature, and we know we have proliferating Buddha nature. Imagine that the proliferating Buddha nature, we've matured into the state of complete Buddhas, and just imagine what that'd be like. And just sit in that place of fearlessness and infinite love, infinite happiness. Your mind is empty of inherent existence. It is not in the nature of sullied and stain. Emptiness is the nature of purity. Now from this wonderful, wonderful motivation, we'll recite the Heart Sutra. I'll do it in Tibetan, because I just decided it now. I think it's good, as I always say, because we've received this transmission so many times from Khyentse Geshe Wandak over the years in Tibetan. Let's keep it going, keep the imprints going, and then when you're at home, you can read it in English and think about the meaning even more. And you'll have these imprints over and over again that will make it even a stronger bond with Rinpoche and with Buddha Shakyamuni. Give me one sec. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Papa Shiraji Bharati Shimi Nimbo Shuzo Jagagedo Bhagavati Brajaparamida Randeya Bhagito Jamdende Ma Shiraji Bharati Shimi Nimbo Bombo Jigo Digita Gita Badaji Najamdende Jabika Chuk Bombi Rega Longi Gendan Jamal Nanjaji Semi Gendan Jamal Nanjaji Jose Dize Jamdende Saman Nawan Jejo Waji Nanani Dingende Lanya Vashuza Yandi Ize Janji Samba Samba Jambo Baba Janrezi Wanji Shiraji Bharati Shima Sama Shubani Lana Majanji Bomanga Bodita Lara Yanji Jedamana Bodao Then Sanji do the Nandambajari, Bo Janji Zamazama Jamba Baba Janrezi Wan, Jula de Gajames or Rigi Bangala, Jerigi Baro de Shambazama Juba Jiba Duba de Dalabaja, the Gajame Badan, Janji Zamazama Jamba Baba Janrezi, Gizi Dandamba. Baba Janrezi Wan, Ju Gizi Dandambajara, the Ibudan de Gajames or Jaribu, Rigi Bangala, Jerigi Baro de Jimba, Zama Juba, Jiba Duba de Da. Nabaja Baja de Bomonga Bode Dajan Ranji Doma Naba Yanda Baja Zuda Zu Dombo Domini Zuzo Zule Domini Jemaya no Domini Lejan Zu Jemaya no Dejan Duto Wandan Duche Dan Duche Dan Nabashiva Nandaba Sharibu de Daju Damji Domini de Zeni Meba Majiba Mangaba Jema Meba Jema Jo Meba Gama Meba Sharibu de Domina Domini Lazume Zorme Dujime Nabashiva Mime Name Jeme Lumi Me Zume Drame Jeme Rome Rejame Jume Domi Ame Iji Game Iji Namaje Bada Yamado Riba Me Riba Ziba Meba Negaji Megaji Zebi Bada Yamado Dejin Dunya Wadan Gujin Wadan Gobodame Yashime Madova Madova Yame Dojaribu de Wana Janji Zama Nandoma Maybe Jeriji Bara de Jimela Denji Natives and Lajiba Majin Darba Denju Don't they Shinjila Dene Nyan Lady Bid Barjin Do Duzundu Nambarshu Be Sanji Danji Jang Sheriji Bara de Jimela Dene Lana Maybe Yandaba Zobi Janju Uba Zoba Zanje Zo de Wana Jeriji Bara de Jiminga Riba Jiminga Nana Miminga Menyama Yaminga Dunya Jabji Rabji Jeva Jibinga when Sumbena Demba Jeba Jade Jeriji Bara de Jimbinga Mebate Ata On Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhizo Jarebu Janju Zema Zema Jemba de Jeriji Bara de Jimba Samalala Baja then they jump then they did things they legend de Janju Zema Zema Jemba Baba Generasi Wajula Lezo Jejo Wajine Lezo Rigibon de Dajano Rigibon de Dajane did I did Emergent to Jeriji Bara de Jimba Samalaja Baja de Dijinjiba Nanji Jesu Yerang or John de get Zikatsi Nitsit and Dambashara Di Budan Chanchu Samba Samba Jemba Baba Generasi Wajidan Tamjedan Demi Dibi Gode Dada Lada Midan Lama Yedan Jeza Jibi Jitin and de Jomende Zambala Nyomba Do Gala Jubene Jodambane Nuje de Junga Yidu Dojen Drubabo Lama Yibu Jinzi Nizun Kandro Zola Jazelo Aga Samara Tashandara Samara Yabe Aga Samara Jasandara Samara Be Adong Gadi Baragati Barasangati Badizo Papa Gonchis Sanji Gai Demidoji Labadoji Mebadoji Shavadoji Jagi Baji Medameja Danji Jeringoya Zo Yerin Donjaji Jojewada Medon Bejan Andrawada Tumba Junjin Bonson Son Georgi Daji de Jandenda de Lejo. Now imagine we're offering a perfect universe as a request for the teaching. Perfect universe, whatever that would be, perfectly soft, wonderful ground, everything's beautiful, all sentient beings are happy. Imagine that we offer this to all the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas and the teachers as a request for the teaching. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples, as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. Na ji bu yi yi me do ra ri ra li ji ni de nyam a di dan yi nu mi de o Dharma Buddha nan ji ji ga la yin zi yun zin ji ji da zong bi du ji zi ma la za ji 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 ja ra I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Idang Guru Mandala Ganyiradayami. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Anybody who's reciting it say the merit I create by listening to the Dharma. I'm teaching the Dharma, so I say the merit I create from teaching the Dharma. You say merit I create from listening to the Dharma. So we'll start it again from scratch, but now you know the formula. When I say the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, you're going to say the merit I create by listening to the Dharma. So let's try that and see if I remember to do it. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sanje jadan zaji janan la, janje bade danyi jasuji, dagi jije jibe zananji, drala benje zanje druba jo, sanje jadan zaji janan la, janje bade danyi jasuji, dagi jije jibe zananji, drala benje zanje druba jo, sanje jadan zaji janan la, janje bade danyi jasuji, dagi jije jibe zananji, drala benje zanje druba jo. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha, Gautama, I pay homage. May this teaching be heard and understood in the language of all sentient beings. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming again to listen to this incredible teaching Rinpoche gave us so many times on the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, especially this section on the small scope that Rinpoche emphasized so much, because we have to get the preliminary stages of the path right if we want to actually succeed in the higher stages of the path. And we will see as we, start to think we have an understanding of the lower stages of the path, and we start to kind of have a little bit of a glimpse of the higher stages of the path, we'll see that we don't have an understanding of I hope I said it right, the lower stages of the path like we thought we did. So we previously thought we had a pretty good understanding of the lower stages of the path, and we kind of move on. And we say, okay, I think I'm a pretty high scope person. We all let our egos get involved in our spiritual practice. We usually buy outfits first. And then we try to do some internal work. That's what I did. I got lots of malas and tattoos and things like that, and got the name of Buddhist, thought it was neat, and then the internal investigation really had to start taking place. So if we want to actually transform our minds, we're going to have to do the internal investigation. And as we get to these higher teachings, my point was, and we think that we've realized these lower things so well, when we get to the higher teachings, we see kind of the flimsiness of our understanding of the lower teachings, and how we never saw how incredible some of the introductory teachings really were in terms of changing our mind day by day from the current state to a holier and holier and holier state. And you have to give yourself credit when you see these little tiny steps forward that you've taken. When you see your mind starting to calm down a little bit, you're starting to be a little more realistic. You're still, maybe having some of the reactions, but you don't like them, and you realize that they're not good quicker than you used to. You're seeing these very slow transformational processes that are happening in your mind. You have to grab onto those and say, wow, this is incredible, and rejoice in it, and tell yourself, keep going. This is really working. This is actually doing something to me. These aren't just words. This isn't an exotic culture that I can immerse myself in and seem very, very cool because I practice. This is actually something that does what is it's advertised to do. And so much in this life, there's so many things that are advertised to do this and advertised to do this, and this will give you this, and this will make you happy. And if you have this, and this will be the end of the road of all of your suffering. But this is one of those things that actually works as advertised. If you engage in these practices, you will find a loosening that takes place, and it's not that you're just isolating yourself in some way, or you're becoming disconnected. It's not that. You're disconnecting from the ignorance that's making you behave and see things incorrectly, and then therefore behave incorrectly. So there's a loosening of the kind of nuts and bolts of your grasping at you're grasping at the I as being truly established, that starts to take place well before you have calm, abiding, special insight, see emptiness. These teachings can really, really affect your mind at a level of just the wisdom arisen from hearing, and then you think about it a little. And the Buddha said so many things that make sense, from an empirical reality perspective, that we can say, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That it's a beautiful, beautiful tradition that doesn't say you have to believe this because this great founder said this. Buddhism would say don't ever do that. Beware of that. Beware of the fact that the Buddha himself said, beware of my teachings. Why should you beware of my teachings? Because I taught to scope. I told some people this, I told some people that, because I was really trying to get that individual to ripen his or her mind to a state of perfection. And then we can see if the Buddha was doing that, then we have to, as Buddhist practitioners, even if we consider ourselves Mahayanists that follow the Madhyamika Prasangika view, it'd be surprising if there were a lot of us that were actually that. But even if we think we are that, we have to see the beauty in even all of the other religious traditions. Because we see some facet of love and compassion, just as it's taught in Buddhism being taught. We see the generation of this idea of ethical behavior in one's mind is better than non-virtuous behavior, presented over and over and over again in these holy texts. And so we have to make sure that we respect all religious traditions. It's so important. It doesn't mean that we make soup and we say we respect all religious traditions. So now I'm going to follow all religious traditions, and I'm going to take a little of this and a little of that and a little of this. Now, we look at the Gonja Jimmy Wambo's teachings. He said the Buddha taught two kinds of teachings. For regular old folk, he taught the advices. We can say that the advices are very similar, and we have to see beauty in all religious traditions. But when we go to start to say, why are we Buddhists? Why do we go for refuge? We have to establish that we're going for refuge to a reliable guide, and why this is the only reliable guide. And then the Buddha said, but for yogis, I taught tenets. Gonja Jimmy Wambo cites this. For ordinary people, I gave you a lot of advice, but for yogis, those who want to cut the root of cyclic existence, because you'll never cut the root of cyclic existence with being good only, and by getting really calm only. You have to have this wisdom. You have to have tenets. You have to have a view. You have to have a final view, and that final view has to be the view of the Madhyamika Prasangika view. This is the only view that will do. But all of these other teachings will support your ability to see that view, and for your mind to mature enough, get calm enough and clean enough and holy enough to be able to see something you've never seen before. And since beginningless time, you've seen so many things, so much phenomena, but you've never once seen the nature of what all this stuff is concealing. All the stuff around you you've seen as objectively existent since beginningless time. But everything that you've been seeing has just been concealing its ultimate truth. It's been deceiving you. It's been deceiving you. It's been making you believe it has objective, inherent, intrinsic existence since beginningless time. And for the first time, you're hoping since beginningless time to very, very easily undo that? No. It's going to take. All phenomena are not truly established because they dependently originate. What's dependent origination? They dependently originate through causes and conditions. Dependently originate, cause wholes and parts. Parts making and a whole. And then what happens? My consciousness, this subjective, this guy, this Jeff, this consciousness, this perceiver, then takes this thing and puts a label on it and brings it into existence as what I think it is. Merely through labeling, it doesn't not exist. Because that labeling of parts, I can say, we can't say that it doesn't exist. But that's how flimsy this existence is. It's this wholes and parts, this collection that serves as a basis of designation for a label. Rinpoche said 1,000,000 times. We have a basis of designation and then this label. And the basis of designation doesn't have any defining characteristics of what we're labeling it from its own side. It's just parts. But we then label them and say, those parts are a whole that inherently exists and has objective reality. And we've done this since beginningless time. So just getting the mere notion that it's operating differently, when we're still seeing everything the way we see it, isn't gonna do it. And that's why we have to understand it more and more and more. Understanding how, in order to understand the conventional, we have to understand the ultimate. And without understanding how ultimate reality supports existence and allows for dependent origination to bring conventional reality into being, without being able to see the two sides of one coin, conventional and ultimate reality, and seeing some sort of separation between those two, not being able to see how to marry those two, you're unable to find what will actually serve as an antidote. And it's so easy to fall into the extremes of permanence, some sort of objective existence, or nihilism. So we're going through this text in a very slow way so that we can understand how that through ethics we can get concentration. We have to have ethics. We have to have our mind clear. We have to have our conscience clear. We have to be just like clean, holy beings if we want shamatha. Like a weekend or something, or a 3-year retreat. If we have a really evil mind and we do non-virtuous things, shamatha is not going to happen. Maybe something you think shamatha is happening. Maybe you think you have calm abiding. Study calm abiding, the 9 stages of calm abiding, and then come back and say you have calm abiding. You may think you have calm abiding, you don't. If you have an evil mind, if you have an abandoned non-virtue, if you have this dirty, sullied, I don't mean pure mind. Obviously, we purify it through concentration and so forth. But I mean a mind that's not engaging in the 3 non-virtues of the body, the 4 non-virtues of the speech, and the 3 non-virtues of the mind that we're learning about. Those kind of coarse, childlike, rudimentary things the Buddha taught to abstain from. Are we doing that or aren't we doing that? If we aren't doing that, if we don't know what those are, we don't know how to engage in the ethics that abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, then we will not be able to get shamatha. It's just one of the conditions that has to be present for shamatha among many others. It's in the texts. The Buddha taught it. The Indian Pandits taught it. The great Tibetan masters taught it. And anyone who taught something differently isn't aligning with the lineage taught by Buddha Shakyamuni. We see that the ethics, when we look at the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva, incredible text by Tome Zampo, great Bodhisattva. And when we look at this text and we see what will it take in order to become realized beings, and then we see what what it will take. Hold on, just give me 1 second. Okay, so let me read first from Tome's Jelse, Tome Zampo's 37 practice of a bodhisattva. So it talks about having to have these ethics as a foundation. Ethics that is renunciation. Renunciation at the ultimate level is renouncing the view that grasps at the idea of inherent existence. I understand that. But at the gross level, we want to get rid of cyclic existence. We want to get rid of suffering. We want to have a determination to day and night, want to get out of cyclic existence, seek transcendent liberation. So it says if you lack discipline, if lack of discipline prevents you from benefiting yourself, so you can't even benefit yourself. You want to talk Mahayana? You can't even benefit yourself if you don't have ethical discipline. It says, then your wish to benefit others is just a joke. That's the language that's used. If lack of discipline prevents you from benefiting yourself, because if you have lack of discipline, you're creating suffering for yourself. Renunciation is, I have to engage in ethics, which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities because I renounce suffering. I want to be liberated day and night. So if lack of discipline prevents you from benefiting yourself, then your wish to benefit others is just a joke. Therefore, to observe discipline with no longing for worldly existence is the practice of a bodhisattva. So here we see a quick mix. Whoa! We went from caring about myself and having renunciation to that's the practice of a bodhisattva. So we see bodhisattvas have renunciation. Bodhisattvas have a desire stronger than a hearer, solitary realizer, stronger than a practitioner of the Pali vehicle, the Theravadan vehicle or Hinayana vehicle. They have this desire to definitely emerge that's so strong because they're working for the sake of others and they're disgust with cyclic existence because of their suffering, and everyone else's suffering is so much stronger than someone who's just worrying about themselves. Obvious, right? I don't think we need to, it's so obvious. A bodhisattva who seeks a wealth of virtue, every perpetrator of harm is like a precious treasure. Therefore, without feeling irritation towards any, to cultivate patience is the practice of a bodhisattva. So we see that in the 37 practices of bodhisattva. And then the root text, Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. We find another amazing, beautiful point made that says basically what we've been saying over and over again, that as you become more evolved as a spiritual practitioner, you realize that the topics of relying on a teacher and leisure, life of leisure and opportunity and death and impermanence are so precious, so pure. If you can realize that teaching on death and impermanence that we were going over on Thursday, and you know the only thing that will help is Dharma, you could get to a place where meditating on death could be transformed into a path because it's not bringing all this fear. Now you know you're going to die. It's a solid state of understanding, and you know the only thing that can help you is this Dharma. If you have this big fear of this state, how are you going to practice the tantric stages where you're taking the death process and transforming it into different things? If you're so scared, you don't even know it could happen. So this is the foundation that will allow you to eventually have an illusory magical body. This meditation on death and impermanence will be the foundation that will allow you to slither out of this contaminated body through Tantra. That's what it will be. Not these fancy practices you're not qualified to do. Do them to leave imprints. Connect with Tantrayana. Connect with these things. Rinpoche said, you must. It's so rare. But practice meditation within your scope. If you have a lot of conceptuality and your mind can't calm down, meditate on breathing. It'll get better. If you practice it, it's like playing guitar, playing keyboards if you're a musician. It'll become so natural to calm your mind down. And then the Dalai Lama said, forget shamatha. Stress and crazy things happen in the world all the time. And if there's a lot going on and it seems to be coming at you, go into another room and breathe. If you're so accustomed to getting your mind from like 1,000 miles an hour down to an object, Think about what that could do to your level of stress on a daily basis when your mind is out of control and hysterical, if you could just bring it down to a reasonable state rather quickly. Think about all of the reactions you could stop that have not ever led to good things if they're reactions out of anger or reactions out of attachment or something. Think about what we could do with this at just an introductory level. So in the Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, the root text for Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the Path to Enlightenment. And then we'll move right over the text. It says, it's stanza number, we'll lead into it, stanza number 28. I shall not be eager to reach enlightenment in the quickest way, but shall stay behind till the very end for the sake of every single being. So this is putting others' needs before your own, which will then make you become a Buddha quicker. It's kind of interesting because that makes you the only real reliable guide. But a bodhisattva says, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, even if it has to mean that it's going to put others' needs and get them there quicker than me. I would do that. I would do that for you because I love you so much. But what's interesting is that love and that care for all sentient beings doesn't allow the person to be dragged, that enlightenment to be dragged on. Because the bodhisattva is saying, may I become a Buddha quickly, because that's how I become the most reliable guide for others. They understand this because they've gone for refuge long before they were bodhisattvas and knew Buddha was the most reliable guide. So that's the meaning of that stanza. When we look at the different kinds of bodhicitta taught in Panchen Sonandrapa's General Meaning of Perfection, we have the bodhicitta that's like a herdsman, bodhicitta that's like an oarsman, and bodhicitta that's like a king. And we learn that the bodhicitta, like an oarsman, says, I'd be willing to put everyone, all sentient beings with me in a boat, in a sense, together, and we'll all row together to enlightenment, and we'll simultaneously all become Buddhas. I'd be willing to do that. I'd be willing to like grab everybody and bring you all at the same time. And then the other kind of bodhicitta that's like a herdsman, that's bringing in sentient beings and helping them and then making them Buddhas and sending them off. That's herding up sentient beings and then waiting till they're all herded up and they've all become Buddhas, and then you become a Buddha. So this is the bodhicitta that's like a herdsman. This thought that would say, I'll wait till everybody's free until I'm free. But when we look at the commentaries on bodhicitta, we see that this is not sensible for a bodhisattva to wait around to become a Buddha. So the king-like bodhicitta says, I'll become a Buddha as quick as possible as a bodhisattva. I'm going to help everybody along the way because that's the only way I can become a Buddha. And I'm going to be willing to do anything for them. I will give them my eyes. But I need to become a Buddha as quickly as possible because I need to have perfect wisdom, perfect love, perfect compassion, perfect power, perfect skillful means. I can't have any lingering bias in my mind if I want to help everyone. And I have to have omniscience if I want to be able to find them all to help. So the king-like bodhicitta is the one that we really, really strive for. But as bodhisattvas, they're willing to endure anything for the sake of beings because they love them so much and have so much compassion for them because they've practiced this thought that says how nice it would be if all sentient beings had happiness in the causes of happiness. May they have happiness in the causes of happiness. I will make it my duty to make myself a cause for them to have happiness in the causes of happiness. May the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas please bless me to be able to have the strength and courage to ripen into a being that could bring sentient beings to a state of happiness and the causes of happiness. And from saying things to themselves like how nice it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. I will become a cause for them to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas please bless me to be able to have the strength and courage and reliability to be able to bring sentient beings to a state which is free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So this is the real bodhicitta that arises from those beautiful states of love and great compassion. And we say great, immeasurable, great compassion because the object of observation is everyone. There's no limitations on this love and this compassion. It's all sentient beings who've been so kind to us in previous lives that we take on this desire to free. And that's what we as bodhisattvas aspire to become, Buddhas who are totally reliable guides, who no longer have afflictive obstructions or obstructions to omniscience, or also called cognitive obscurations. So it says, I shall purify limitless, inconceivable lands and remain in the 10 directions for all those who call my name. So I will be that being. Anyone who needs a guide, when they call for one, may I be that person. And how do I become that being? I shall purify all my bodily and my verbal forms of activity. My mental activities too I shall purify, and do nothing that is non-virtuous. When those observing the vow of the active altruistic intention have trained well in the 3 forms of discipline, individual liberation vows, bodhisattva vows, tantric vows, their respect for these 3 forms of discipline grows, which causes purity of body, speech, and mind. So as you progress on the path, your respect to purify and keep these things pure grows even more. So we see how we have to get this right at the beginning. Therefore, through effort in the vow made by bodhisattvas for pure, full enlightenment, the collections for complete enlightenment will be thoroughly accomplished. So if you want the collections for full enlightenment, start with relying on a teacher, understanding why we have a life of leisure and opportunity that's going to perish. Understand that with a life of leisure and opportunity, we engage in the practice of teaching, sharing common with beings of small and medium capacity and great capacity. Understand that although we can practice this with this human basis, we will perish. And that when we will perish, there are horrible states of existence we could go to. And we have to go for refuge and understand what kind of reliable guide could show us how not to do that, how not to have horrible states of existence. And we have to know how to modify our behavior if we don't want to have horrible states of existence. And if we want to achieve that golden body, that transparent, clear, pure body of a Buddha, that body, those different bodies, the natural Dharmakaya and the wisdom Dharmakaya and the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya, if we want to be able to have those bodies of the Buddha, then we have to start with ethical behavior. So let's start with ethical behavior. Let's look at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. So previously, on the previous episode of Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, we went over the 10 non-virtues. We looked at them in a cursory way, the 3 non-virtues of the body, killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, 4 non-virtues of the speech, lying, harsh words, divisive speech, and gossip, and 3 non-virtues of the mind, covetousness, harmful intent, and wrong view. So we went over them in list, and then we started to kind of dig in on them a little bit. We went over killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. So we left off on sexual misconduct and moved into lying. So we understood about sexual misconduct that as a lay practitioner, the number one thing is to not commit adultery. But all these other forms of sexual behavior can cause us to leave kind of familiarization and habituation in our mind to become more attached. So the Buddha, of course, said at the highest level, celibacy is the highest virtue, but we're not all cut out for that. I wasn't cut out for that. But the more and more we engage in activities that produce attachment, like if we drink alcohol, that can cause us to, our minds to become almost cause our minds to become intoxicated and then make bad decisions. Likewise, sexual misconduct, in this case, where Lama Tsongkhapa points out things that seem like kind of judgments about us, he's just saying, like, we're looking to try to not be attached, not have hatred, and not have these negative states of mind. So don't engage in these things that can cause these negative states of mind to flourish. If you want to get rid of afflictions, you have to see, do I have this affliction? Yes. Do I have this attachment? Is coming in contact with this thing I'm doing over and over again causing me to have less or more attachment? If it's causing me to have more attachment, then I need to move away from this thing that's cause me to have more attachment. Because if I don't, I'm going to think about it over and over again with what's called improper mental conduct, and I'm going to give it all this stuff, and I'm going to build it up and make it more and more cool and more great and more something I have, and then it's going to become darker, and then it can turn into some things that we don't want it to. And then now it went from attachment into anger in some states because we aren't getting what we want, and now we've looked at this sort of behavior as a way to just get pleasure, and we need this because we deserve it. So let's move on. Now we move on to lying. So we look at it in terms of, we say there have to be three things present in order for there to be a complete final karma accumulated. We have to have the first part, where we have some sort of an affliction that gives, starts the whole thing out, and kind of like an identification of someone we're going to engage in this non-virtue in relation to, or something we're going to engage in this non-virtuous in relation to. So we're talking about lying now, so it's someone. So for instance, we have to have some sort of affliction, some sort of attachment, anger, hatred, or ignorance, or pride, something that comes up that says for us that we want to deceive a being. Okay? So we want to deceive a being because we have some sort of form of negative mind state. So then there's this being. Now we deceive them. We tell the lie. As soon as they understand the lie we told, the second step is taken place. So we have the pre-motivation, the motivation, it's called sometimes, just motivation. One step's done. Second motivation, the lie is told, the person understood the lie. So now there's two steps. Now if you rejoice in the lie having been told, then at that point you've completed the whole package and you've created the greatest degree of non-virtue in relation to lying. If you don't rejoice in it and say, oh my God, I just told a lie, I shouldn't have done that, then there's only two. It's a medium degree. And if you want to lie really badly, but you don't go ahead and do it, there's only one there. And eventually you won't want to lie at all if you engage in enough practice. So that's how you progress as a spiritual practitioner. You don't, study Buddhism for a week, see emptiness, get shamatha, see emptiness, and then go on your merry way. You start with the little things, and then you refine it even more and more and more. So then a lot of questions may come to mind. In Rinpoche, I will share with you some of the examples, and also an example that Lori brought up this morning. So I was trying to think of some examples of different possibilities, and I think you'll get the point in a second. Okay, so Rinpoche always used to say, so what do? You don't want to lie. You can't lie. So you're in the forest, beautiful deer runs by you. And just a few seconds behind this deer, hot on the tracks of the deer, is a hunter. And the hunter then asks you the question, which way exactly did the deer go? So, do you say, oh, it went that way, I can't lie? Or if you have compassion for the deer, your mind has compassion because you want to abandon harm, you want to abandon killing, you don't want this being to get the karma of killing. Even though they think that getting the killing will make them happy, they're chasing after something that's giving them more suffering. So you have to be pretty like Buddhist-y to be able to do this, right? You have to have your mind pretty saturated and be kind of Buddhist-y to have this kind of thought, taking place, where you see that this isn't, there's all these other things that are going on, that you wouldn't normally see. So my point being, so you see this person's going to have non-virtuous karma. You don't want the deer to be harmed. You don't know if they're starving the family. This hunter looks pretty well fed. Who runs up? Looks well fed. And then what do you do? Well, Rinpoche says, what if you tell him to go the wrong way? You tell him to go that way, and really the deer went that way. Well, out of your love and compassion, you made a decision, but you did tell a lie. And then afterwards, are you rejoicing in the fact that you saved a being, or that you told a lie. Gets tricky now. Everything's not black and white and cut and dry. Karma is the most difficult thing to understand, the Buddha said. Much more difficult than the nature of reality and emptiness, because it's an omniscient mind that can kind of put these puzzles, pieces all completely together. So we have to kind of put them together in the best way we can and use common sense to put them together. So what's going on here? Okay, so you just generated love and compassion. You gave fearlessness, the generosity of fearlessness. You saved a sentient being. And you helped this other person not create karma. So there's virtue there that was just created. Enormous amount of virtue created out of a mind that could do that, could not want this one to get karma and not want this one not to get hurt, and a mind that could do all that, enormous amount of virtue. Can your mind do that? I don't know. Can mind do that? I don't know. Enormous amount of virtue mind that would have to be able to be there to be able to do that. But is there a non-virtue created? Yeah. You told a lie. The person believed it and ran the other way. But it's little. We have beginningless time. All these imprints of virtue and non-virtue. This hugely awesome thing happened. This little tiny thing happened. Now, should we say, oh, little tiny things don't matter? No, we know what magnification of karma is. But someone who's a practitioner can immediately say, I had to tell that lie, and engage in the four opponent powers. Say, I had to tell that lie. I wish I hadn't told that lie. Go for refuge immediately because you know that the reliable guide is the Buddha. Say you did that. Say you were that hunter. You were that person that told the hunter the lie. And then immediately after, you don't rejoice. You say, wow, are you rejoicing saying, I just saved a being and I saved a being from their karma, but man, I just told a lie. I shouldn't have. And then you go for refuge to a reliable guide. You go for refuge. I go for refuge to the Guru, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. And we say for the sake of all sentient beings because you generate bodhicitta. May I become a Buddha for the sake of everyone, because deceiving someone is harming another sentient being. And generating bodhicitta is the exact opposite opponent of that. When you have infinite love and compassionate for everyone, that's the opposite of harm. So you apply an opponent that's the opposite of harm right from the beginning, and you take refuge and generate bodhicitta because now you want a witness. You want a reliable witness who's there to hear you saying, I engaged in lying. I don't want to engage in lying. So then you connect with more teachings on not lying. So you connect with more gurus, Buddhas, and bodhisattvas who can show you how to become pure and not lie even at the most subtle level. Not lie to yourself at the most subtle level, saying that, oh, maybe achieving and abiding nirvana would be better than Buddhahood. Praying to not be able to, lie even at the subtlest level. So we're generating this merit field as a witness to our saying, I regret. So the first opponent power is saying, generating the field of merit. Generating, it's called the basis. All the gurus, Buddhas, and bodhisattvas going for refuge to them, and then generating bodhicitta. Because we do things negative in relation to others. We do things negative in relation to the gurus, Buddhas, and bodhisattvas, to the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I mean, our teachers have taught us not to harm, not to lie. Now we've lied. All they want for us is to achieve Buddhahood. And now we're doing something against the gurus, Buddhas, and bodhisattvas. So we bring them here and say, I shouldn't have done this. I regret having done this. And then we try to apply, this is the second, the regret of having done such a thing. And then we try to apply some sort of opponent towards this action. If we want to quickly get rid of this negativity within our mind, we want to just burn away this kind of seed that's going to give rise to some sort of suffering, going to give rise to someone lying to me in the future. Now someone's going to lie to me because I lied. So I need to get rid of that. So I need to apply an opponent to that thing so it can't give rise to someone lying at me. Really, it's as simple as it gets. So now what could be an opponent? You could engage in the 35 Buddhas of confession, Rinpoche always said. You could recite the Heart Sutra. You could recite the Vajrasattva mantra, recite any of the mantras of the Action Tantra, Performance Tantra, Yogic Tantra, highest Yoga Tantra deities, any of those mantras you want to recite. We have so many options. Recite sutras, profound sutras. Meditation on emptiness, though, Rinpoche always said, was the biggest burner up. If you know what emptiness really is, for some that's the biggest burner if you know what emptiness really is. But if you think emptiness is nothingness and you meditate on that, that will not be a good antidote. You should rely upon reciting just names of Buddhas. So I think we have to really be honest with ourselves as practitioners and apply some of the more coarse antidotes that the Buddha taught us. And we can think that those coarse antidotes are empty. Maybe that's the best way to recite the 35 Buddhas. The 35 Buddhas are empty of inherent existence, objective existence, empty of intrinsic existence. Recite the Heart Sutra and understand the implicit and explicit meaning of the Heart Sutra, the emptiness of objective existence coupled with the 5 paths. So that's a way we could do it, where we can recite sutras and see the emptiness of inherent existence within the reciter, the recitation, and what's being recited itself, or who we're reciting it to, or however, all emptiness of all the action, agent, and object. So we apply an antidote, a specific antidote to the non-virtue we've done. And we can say, other non-virtues we've done. We can couple them. We can class them up. If it's the end of the day and we were a real wreck, we can put them all in there and then apply an antidote. And then we make commitments, which is the fourth. So it goes from the basis, power of the basis, the Gurus, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, going for refuge and generating bodhicitta, regretting what we've done, applying some sort of an antidote, some sort of a practice, which is a direct antidote towards the negativity that we've done, or negativities that we've done, and then making a commitment not to do those negativities again. As quick as we can, we should purify our non-virtues when we engage in them. It's a real fancy trick the Buddha gave us, because we can really be proactively creating our future illusion. A good one. So we make a commitment. Now, this commitment needs to be one we can really keep. If it's something we do all the time, say, I'll not do it for 5 minutes. I'll not do it for 10 minutes. And then next time you didn't do it for 10 minutes, say you won't do it for 20. Then say you won't do it for a day. Then say you won't do it for a week. Then say you won't do it for a month, for a year, or for the rest of your life. Don't start with the rest of your life, because you're making a commitment. You're making a vow, in a sense. All the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas are there. You're promising, you're saying, hey, you're promising yourself. There's no external judges, but the reliable guides are there and show us what to do, and they've shown us to do it in a certain way, and we went against that way to do it. So we're making a commitment we can actually carry out, because we said before to them when we took all these vows, many of us have taken the Bodhisattva vows, the 18 root, 46 secondary vows. The first vow is not criticizing others. How you doing? Right? So we have to engage in these purifications. And if I say I'm not going to criticize someone else ever again in my life, that's not a realistic commitment, because I'm just not there. I'm better than I was last year. I'm better than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And each of those marks, maybe I was a little better. I went really stagnant at some points in my practices. I have to be really frank. I really stagnated at times and really thought that my idea of emptiness was good, and really thought my idea of bodhicitta was good. Yeah, I got that. And that's how I just kind of operate, and really just didn't grow. And I just encourage none of you to live like that. Just grow. Keep studying, keep practicing. This stuff works. It will really transform your mind. So we're going back to the example. Okay, you didn't tell the hunter. Now you got a virtue that's enormous and a non-virtue. But the non-virtue is small. And if you do the rejoicing part right, if you rejoice in the compassion and the love and the generosity of giving fearlessness, it's called, you can look it up, but there's, the generosity of giving fearlessness, took place. Rejoice in that, and then regret, and, go for refuge and regret having told the lie, then that's the process, the proper process. So now, Lori, we were talking, what's an example of where you could not even know it? So we know in the case of an animal sacrifice, someone identifies an animal. How could you, I can see how you'd kill something out of anger or attachment to flesh because you want to eat it, or attachment to something, whatever. Let's just keep it coarse. But what about ignorance? Well, ignorance could be an example where you think, okay, there's a sentient being I need to sacrifice. So your ignorance thinks that animal sacrifice is virtue. Somebody told you. You have this ignorance of wrong views that was taught to you. The animal sacrifice is virtue. So then you identify the animal, and out of your ignorance, you say, I'm going to sacrifice it. You kill it, and then you say, how wonderful it is that I completed this religious ceremony. You've created the worst karma, and you thought it was awesome. What's another example? I don't think any of you are in your backyard doing animal sacrifices. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not, maybe I don't know my audience that well. But I would gather that maybe that's not happening. But what about this example that Lori came up with? So skillful. Got to give her full credit. So she has her baby. And the baby can get sick if it's bit by a spider. Right? So spider's very dangerous for the child. So the mother or father runs in, sees the spider walking up towards the child, and kills it to save the child. Feels like, I've done it. I've saved the child. What went on there? We'll leave this to high geshes, but let me think about it, and let's see if you agree. How could we interpret that? Okay, out of a biased attitude, self-cherishing attitude that sees your crew biased as your group, you separate it out and see your child as something to be more attached to. See where this is going? Then the spider, so now you're attached to my child. My child can't be harmed by that awful thing. That's been my mother. That's been my child. If we're Buddhist, that's what we think. We walk in the room. We kill the spider. Now we say, I've killed it. My child's safe. I love my child. I love my child. Is that attachment? Is what's going on there? I'll leave that to you to decide. I'm not going to decide it. I'm not going to decide it. What is it? What is that there? Are all three parts filled and it looks like something really good happened? Probably, right? But who knows? I'm sure there's something with the love of the parent in there. But then what else could you do? Just let the kid die? Get bit by a venomous spider? No. You sit back and you say, how can I stop this from happening? It hasn't happened yet. The child's not been bit. What can I do to separate the child from the spider? Could I put up netting? And that's how you start to become wisely kind to yourself and to those around you. You want your child safe. You want the spider safe. How can we unite those two worlds? Even if it's to the point of absurdity. Am I willing to go to the point of absurdity to unite those two worlds? Conventional absurdity. To make sure that the spider's okay and that the baby's okay. Because when we realize the very, very first thing after we get renunciation about the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, we would walk in the room and not be able to distinguish which one was our mother, which one was our child. That's what Pabunka says. We'd walk up to a worm and say, I've been your dear child in a previous life. We'd walk in the room and see your child and say, I've been your dear child in a previous life. And we'd see the spider and say, I've been your dear child in a previous life. And we'd want to protect both of them. That's when we see if our bias has been deconstructed or not. If we can use wisdom instead of just reacting. And that's what these teachings do. That's what our calming our mind practice does. It allows us to walk into the room and say, okay, 2 sentient beings in a room. Not one matters more than the other. And we have to be reasonable, folks. I understand. Take it to the point of absurdity, but if your child's going to be killed by a venomous spider, I'm not here to just tell you, to just have faith. Nothing like that. I'm just saying, look at the alternative ways around harming others. When it comes now, reverse it back to the lying. We tell a lot of lies because we don't want to hurt others, quote unquote. We have to be careful that we're not just doing it because it will feel better for us. Because we don't want to really hurt ourselves or our reputation. Are we lying and saying we're lying to help you, to really help ourselves? This is the question that we have to ask. I'm not asking you to tell me. I'm asking you to ask yourself, because that's what I have to do every day. The Buddhas don't remove wash away our sins with water. I can't throw this water on the screen and wash away all the negativities. The Buddha can't throw some water on me and wash away my negativities. I wasn't implying I'm a Buddha, but you get the point. I'm certainly not a Buddha. I certainly haven't seen emptiness. I'm certainly not a bodhisattva, and I don't have renunciation. So let's just put that there before you all. But I know I can get all of those realizations. I believe it 100%. But the Buddhas can't wash away our negativities with water. They can't take away our negativities with their hands. They don't give us their realizations. They teach the truth of suchness, and that's how we become liberated. And if we want to realize what suchness is, if we want to know what the emptiness of inherent existence means, we have to get our minds calm enough to look at it. And to get our minds calm enough to look at it, our minds have to be ethical enough and clean enough and pure enough to get calm enough to look at. And it all is just one big happy puzzle that we can't get out of putting the pieces to. And it's an interesting puzzle because the puzzle doesn't come together as a whole, even if you have all of the pieces, unless you put them in the right order. So it's a very complicated puzzle that all the pieces are in front of you, but the puzzle only works as a whole if the pieces are put together in the right way. It's not like a normal puzzle. It's not a normal enigma where you can just kind of go around and put this here and put that there and put this here. You have to put this here, build a block, then build another block, and then build another block. And you can be learning about all these other things which will make your initial block stronger and will allow you to build a really good block when you're really qualified to build the next block. Your block will be awesome because you've thought about how to build it already through glancing meditation. But the block doesn't get built until you analyze it and meditate on it. That block, that foundation of what will cause you to become Buddhas. And it starts with ethical behavior. It starts with saying, hey, I need a teacher, I need a qualified teacher, and I need qualified teachings. I need to hear things that are qualified. And I have this human basis that I can do something with. I can become a Buddha. I can get rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. But I'm going to die. I'm going to. And when I die, there'll be some bad options for me. The best option, if I haven't completed all of the pathways, is to meet with a guru. So that's why it starts with the guru. I have this leisure and opportunity I can do something with because I have a teacher. I can't do anything with this life of leisure and opportunity without a qualified teacher. I'll be led down by the nose down all these wrong paths. It'll feel good, and then I'll be like, this isn't really working. And then he'll do something for a year or two and go, this isn't really working. But if you follow the pathway taught by Buddha Shakyamuni and Lord Maitreya and Manjushri and Asanga and Vasubandhu and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Chandrakirti and Aryadeva, you can't go wrong. And if you have just the blessing in your mind to be able to meet with the teachings of the Mahamudra, Tilo Naro, and Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa, I just rejoice in that. And if you can meet with those teachings of the union of bliss and emptiness, in our tradition of the Galupa tradition, I just rejoice and I feel so happy for you. I feel so happy that we've met with the teachings of the Action Tantra, Performance Tantra, Yogic Tantra, and Highest Yoga Tantra, and we can actually engage in them if we get this part of the Lam Rim right. So I think that we're just about done with what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to go over lying. I wanted to tell the four opponent powers, and I wanted to go over the stories that Rinpoche told. So I just want to make sure that there wasn't anything that I wanted to. The culmination of a lie is someone else's comprehension. So we see how when I lie about the way that the deer went, it happened. I mean, there's a lie that's been told. My voice said something my mind knew wasn't true and told somebody that. It happened. It went on. It says the Treasury of Knowledge auto commentary. So Basu Bandhu's own commentary on the Abhidharma Kosha, I believe, explains that if no one comprehends the words, then speaking them is simply the non-virtuous action of senseless speech. Interesting, right? Divisive speech and offensive speech are similar in respect. So if you're lying and you just lie into the air, it's gossip. Meaningless words. Things that you're talking about that just aren't the Dharma, basically, when you look at what gossip is or isn't actually. Are you talking about something that's going to give you fearlessness and bliss, or are you talking about something that's going to give you more attachment, more anger, more ignorance? So that's the qualification behind gossip. And that when I read that for the first time, I was like, oh my God, almost everything I do is gossip. Even when I'm at work, it's like, wow. And I'm like, okay, this guy wanted pepperoni and this person wanted broccoli on their pizza, and I'm talking all that out, like I'm gossiping. Like, is that gossip? When I'm just trying to talk about how to do my job? Wow, this is how samsara just goes over and over and over again. We're leaving all these imprints of just senseless things in our mind. And it's like a flash of lightning in the dark. You can catch somehow, like lightning in a bottle. If you could just make use of this life and actually not gossip, actually talk about things that matter, actually think about things that matter. Wow, what a rare opportunity we have. We're doing it. We're doing it. We're right here doing it. If you're listening to this teaching and you don't have the faults of the 3 pots, or at least you're doing the best you can with the pots, then you're doing it. And rejoice in the fact that you're doing what the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas did to get to where they were. You're doing what Khenser Geshe Wandok did to be able to achieve the realizations that you saw in front of you. What seemed to be what I experienced for 25 years in front of me. And this consistency of behavior I experienced for 25 years, this consistency of renunciation I watched for 25 years, this consistency of bodhicitta, this love and compassion that he had for others, this consistency of not caring about anything, looking looking at the world like the husk of the corn, like Lama Tsongkhapa says. I watched this being for 25 years, relate to the world with pure renunciation, but be so engaged in the world simultaneously, but engaged in the world just for everyone else but himself. And how that activity, which would seem so foreign to many of you watching and may seem so wrong, because I have to, take care of me, was something that I witnessed cause a being to have bliss and complete composure all of the time and stay in this place. Where I was like, Rinpoche, and this, and I lost my job, and I'm a singer in a band. To him just being like this all the time. It's incredible how these geshes that really, really practice, it get to the point where when they're like 50 or so, it seems, 40, 50, they get their geshe degree. And the ones that really want to practice, they go to Tantric University or they go into retreat for a little bit. And then they come out and then they just sit on their bed for like 40 years. And every time you come in contact with them, they're just so content, so happy. And then when they have to go places, they go places and they carry that happiness with them. But most of the time, and I think that anybody watching that knows great geshes will agree, those great yogi geshes, they're just sitting on their bed. They're doing all these different practices. And then, they're in some place doing something. And then you come in to greet them and they, light up. Like they'd never seen a human in their life, and all they've ever wanted to do is see a human being. They just go from this place of complete concentration that seems like they're in another land that you've never even imagined, to complete focus on you and this love that radiates out of them. That's just, inarguable. If you've been in contact and you've been in the room with a really qualified Lama, one that just exudes love and compassion, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I've been in rooms with teachers who are, not like that too. But those yogis that I've met, those beings in the mountains, that were living in retreat alone for decades, that I met, that sat and only saw people come when they'd come up to bring them some tea offerings or some rupees or something. They were way up there in the mountains. And they were so content. And all they wanted to do is make me some tea and give me some transmissions of some mantras. So happy. Not thinking I've got to get out of here. How many times in your life, how many times in your day are I got to get out of here. I got to go do something else. I got to look at something else. I got to be somewhere else. I got to be someone else. If I could be like them, I'd be fine. If I could get that, I'd be better. If I could have that bigger house, I wouldn't be in this small house and feel so confined. I wish I could just be left alone for once. Why does everybody always leave me alone? That's how we exist. And the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas just love us so much and want us to start thinking like them. And we will. That's the part that's so cool. It's not a God that's going to like give us some sort of thing. Start doing this practice. Start meditating. Start changing your life. Start modifying your behavior. Start calming your mind down and start figuring out what the heck this emptiness that Buddha talked about is. If you can do that, your life will change. If you do that every day of your life, start with 5 minutes a day. Every day, though. Every day. Don't skip it. If you woke up late, do it later. Do it at night. Don't skip it. Every day. Engage in the practice. And I promise you, you won't need to be convinced by a teacher that this stuff is true. The teacher will tell you it's true. You convince yourself and you'll know it's true. It won't be the teacher's wisdom. It'll be your wisdom. It won't be the Buddha's wisdom. It'll be your wisdom. The Buddha doesn't own the wisdom. The Buddha's wisdom is just the nature of reality. It's not something Buddha made up. It's just the way things are. Love is the highest bliss. Emptiness is the nature of reality. It's just the way things are. Buddha didn't make it up. This will be your reality. This will be your knowledge. Buddha Shakyamuni wasn't the first Buddha. You will be the same quality of being. We just have to do it. We have to start here and we have to be consistent and do it every single day. And it won't just happen out of magic because we knew a great teacher. We have to know a great teacher, and then the great teacher says a bunch of great stuff. We have to listen to that great stuff and then put that great stuff into practice and take the medicine of the Dharma that the Dharma is required for us to transform our mind, and then say how wonderful it is that we've taken this medicine and that the Buddhas have come to the world and that we have this opportunity, and may the Dharma never ever leave. May we make a prayer right now that from the virtue we've created in this teaching, may the Dharma never leave the world systems. May it always be there so that sentient beings have a chance to not have to have the suffering of suffering, that really coarse suffering of body and mind, not have the pervasive compounded suffering, that contaminated happiness that self-destructs sooner or later and turns into suffering, that more subtle suffering we talk about that's the bait that makes us think everything's okay for a minute and then it explodes in our face again, that happiness that's contaminated in cyclic existence. Even the greatest relationships, one of us will die. We'll have to be separated, that self-destruct mechanism within the happiness that we chase after of cyclic existence. And being forced again and again and again into that state so quickly, this impermanence that we have, and we're being forced so quickly to birth, aging, sickness, and death, and being separated from pleasant things, meeting with unpleasant things, not getting what we want, and having to suffer these forced-on aggregates over and over and over again because of this grasping at the I, this conception of true existence, the conception of this I and phenomena as having true existence, objective existence, intrinsic existence. And from that, I have this inappropriate mental conduct that then turns into a big mess of afflictions and contaminated actions and more suffering. So let's stop doing that and let's get to a place where we can transform our minds into a state that is fearlessness and bliss. So let's see. Does anybody have any questions? I'm sorry, on the other platforms I don't have the questions on. It's because you can see I taught for an hour and a half or so, and I wouldn't have been able to do question and answer. But I will go on TikTok soon and just do questions and answers, and I'll publicize that I'm doing that for folks that want to do some introductory questions, because I'm willing to answer anything that I know the answer to, and I know the words I don't know very well, which are important to be able to say. So I see Priscilla has her hand up. Go ahead and unmute. You cannot move.
Good morning. In this continuing story, my friend's husband, who goes by the name of Grinch, died Saturday morning at 4:15, and of metastatic lung cancer. And I'm asking for anybody who wishes to say prayers, Bardo type prayers for him. So that's all.
Okay, yes, so may Grinch meet with the Holy Lama quickly. May Grinch meet with Kensur Geshe Wandak, wherever he or she is, and be able to be guided through the stages of the path to enlightenment and achieve these realizations that we talk about. May Grinch truly, and all sentient beings who've passed away, all sentient beings who suffer in the six realms of cyclic existence, anyone who's experienced even the suffering of a headache, may each and every one of them be free from samsara, be able to achieve freedom from the afflictive obstructions that cause all of these horrible things, and the obstructions to omniscience that keep us from being completely capable and reliable, and keep us from having infinite happiness. So may all sentient beings move quicker towards that state of infinite happiness and fearlessness by meeting with a qualified teacher and following what he or she says to do. Thank you so much, Priscilla. I really appreciate it.
He received extraordinary compassionate care.
That's
So
awesome.
there's also gratitude for the nurses' aides, the doctors, the medicines that were available. All the healers did it right. And
I really rejoice.
so I am also rejoicing in and being a healer and understanding that. So I'm very grateful for all the kindness that they did for him.
I really rejoice in all of the end of life work that people do and healthcare work. It's just such a hard position to be in, and a lot of your clients who you get to know, you will watch pass. And I really rejoice in the fact that people have the strength and courage and put the effort in because they care for others so much to be able to take care of us when we're so vulnerable. I really watched a lot of kindness and compassion take place. So all of you who are healthcare workers and healers, I really just thank you so much for what you do. And if you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, there is no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha, Gautama, I pay homage. Thank you so much. We'll make a... and I just want to announce also, anybody who wasn't on before, Geshe Dorje Damdu teaches what's called the Nalanda Diploma course. It's a 14-month course. I'm currently taking the master's course. It's a 6-year course. They now have a shorter course that's not as intense, but I think that anybody who has time, I don't know if it's once or twice a week, it's on a WebEx meeting. He's in India, but it's very clear. He speaks in English very clearly. He went to Cambridge University and has a Geshe Larampa degree. I think he's one of the greatest teachers in the world. And there's this rare opportunity for this diploma course that's opened up for you to take it. And it's in Indian rupees money. So it's so cheap. I just encourage everyone to look into it through Tibet House, New Delhi. You go to Tibet House, New Delhi, and you'll find the information on the Nalanda diploma course. It starts in March, but sign-up's already started. You can find out about fees, and there's scholarships, and you can write a letter. Don't let money hold it back, but if you can pay, you should. But don't let money be a consequence. Don't let the consequence be you not going because of money. Very compassionate people, and this program was put together under the guidance of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And Geshe Dorje Damdu was put in place by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Geshe Dorje Damdu was sent to Cambridge by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I think you're getting it, as he would say. And many of you have had the honor of being able to see some of the things I forwarded you. So. I'm a big fan of Geshe Dorje Damdu and Geshe Aga and Geshe Malatenzin Ladrin, who are like guiding lamps in my time of desperation when Rinpoche was gone. Even though I could see the teacher in the Dharmakaya and feel it, because of all the years, having the physical presence of an actual teacher who knew Rinpoche, teachers, all of them knew Rinpoche, knew how holy he was, and are so connected to his holiness. I just feel like I'm in such good hands, and I feel like I can continue to talk to all of you, and that you are all in such good hands because, hey, I feel maybe a little bit self-conscious talking about this, but I know what I'm saying is what Dalai Lama is saying, Geshe Gompo is saying, Geshe Malay Tenzin Ladrin is saying, Geshe Aga is saying, Geshe Dorje Damdu is saying, and Kensur Geshe Wandak is saying, Dalai Lama is saying. I know what I'm saying, they're saying. So that gives me the confidence to sit here and talk with you. So anyway, let's do a mandala offering of thanksgiving for this teaching, the lineage all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni, that Rinpoche gave to me, and then Kensur Pema Jetsun and Shakugen Nima, and Gen Uzer and Shakugen and Gen Lachap, and Trijung Rinpoche and Ling Rinpoche and Zong Rinpoche gave to Rinpoche, and their teachers gave to them. Let's just really make this Thanksgiving mandala offering to all of those holy beings that make it possible for us to learn how to never suffer again, and us to learn how to bring others to a place where they never suffer again, and how we can learn that by doing that and thinking like that, we will have infinite bliss. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Okay. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso. May you stay until samsara's end. Gari rawe gore jin yandi mendan dewa malu jongwe ne Genese one enzin yazo ijabezide vadu den yoji. May any mistakes that I've made in giving this teaching be purified through this mantra. Om benzo sato samaya manu balaya benzo sato zeno vajishadita me baba zudugaya me baba zubogaya me baba anurati me baba savazeri me baraja zavagama suji me kidam shigan guru hum ha bhagavan zavadata kata benzo mama moka benzo baba maha samaya safa hom ve. May we all be protected by Paul and Lama. Jorama 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 tunjo kalaraja mo rama vajadaja tunjo rulu rulu hong jo hong jorama jorama jojo rama tunjo kalaraja mo rama vajadaja tunjo rulu rulu hong jo hong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalarja Mo Rama Jadacha Tunja Rulu Long Jo Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalarja Mo Rama Jadacha Tunja Rulu Long Jo Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalarja Mo Rama Jadacha Tunja Rulu Hong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalarja Mo Rama Jadacha Tunja Rulu Hong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalarja Mo Rama Jadacha Tunja Rulu Hong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalarja Mo Rama Jadacha Tunja Rulu Hong Jo. May all of your obstacles be removed. Om Vajrapani Hari Agriva Garuda Hom Fate. 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 In all our lives, may we never be separated from Kensur Geshe Wandak. May we meet with him, whether it's in the emanation body, when we're in ordinary levels, or the enjoyment body when we're Arya Bodhisattvas. May we always complete the causes and conditions to be with this pure being, and when we become Buddhas ourselves, may we help Kensur Geshe Wandak lead all sentient beings to a state of enlightenment. And may we always see Kensur Geshe Wandak as inseparable from our root deity, and as inseparable from Arya Tara. Om Tare Tu Re Mama Ayupuni Yana Pudding Guru Soha. All right. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful week. We'll see you on Thursday. And we'll talk about Lama Tsongkhapa's source of all my good and figure out a little bit more how we become Buddhas. Thank you. I hope you're all well. Get in touch with me if you want to know about the course, if you can't find it.